Hi everyone, it's Denise Brown from the Caregiving Years Training Academy. This is day 4 of our special event, Healing the Holidays, and we're going to close the event with an interactive panel discussion. We've got 3 panelists joining us today. We're going to talk about our perspectives on the holidays, any challenges that we're really working through, and we'd love for you to share yours as well. So feel free to type in the chat room any questions that you might have for us, any challenges that you're looking for help to manage, and any insights that you've gained that you'd like to share with us. So let me do a quick round of introductions. So Kathy is with us today. We met Kathy yesterday, right? Was it yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yeah, so Kathy cared for her mom and a dear friend. And so she gave us great tips yesterday about how to plan for the holidays. So we're going to continue that conversation. And then Emily's here with us again today. And Emily joined us on Wednesday, day 2, and she helped us really think about the rituals that we can add around our grieving and did a beautiful grieving release ritual. And if you missed that presentation, it was day 2, watch the archive. It was really quite fascinating and really touching. And Melinda's joining us today. She cared for her dad, and she's going to share us the perspective of how to help children with grieving through the holidays. So thanks everybody for being here. So let's start with a pretty basic question, and that is, how are you guys feeling about the upcoming holiday season? Kathy, let's start with you.
Well, I'm feeling about the same as yesterday, which is a little bit trepidatious, a little concerned about it. Mostly because, actually, Denise, this came out of a question you asked me yesterday. I think I had mentioned about Thanksgiving and about how my family always had meltdowns at Thanksgiving, and you asked me why. I did some thinking about that last night, and I realized, interestingly, we had, up until we developed our Thanksgiving ritual, we had always had Thanksgiving with my mother. We had always had Christmas with my mother-in-law, and they're both gone. And my mother-in-law only passed away 3 years ago, and we don't have any holiday traditions of our own, except the Thanksgiving thing that we've now developed, which of course we can't do this year because of COVID. So it's an interesting opportunity for us. But I thought about what I think we talked yesterday about what happens when the central person, I think you brought this up, who is always the central person in the celebrations is no longer there. And, certainly I'm feeling a little bit of that, okay, what do we do now thing, especially this year since we can't really travel and do anything that might take the place of that.
We're going to continue the conversation with Emily and Melinda. And I just want to add that it occurred to me during our special event that this probably could be the last holiday season with my parents, who are 89 and 86. And I wonder if anybody else is feeling that pressure and grief over the last and thinking about it as the last during COVID. So feel free to share any insights you have in the chat room. Emily, how about you? How are you feeling about the upcoming holiday season?
Thanks, Denise. I am approaching it, I think, in a pretty low-key way. And my dog is here next to me, so sorry if you hear my dog. But in a pretty low-key way. I think that there have been 2 kind of major phases of adjustment. So my husband became paralyzed a little over 3 years ago and had a spinal cord injury. And so our holidays really shifted a lot then and changed. And then now with COVID, it's like another shifting and another getting used to, because we had started to, figure out things that were more at home and had a couple people that were coming to us, but we weren't going out like we used to. We used to go driving around to, we would see my parents, we would see his parents, he would see his grandparents, and so it was very hectic and a lot of travel and a lot of busyness. And so now it's very different. It's much more low key. We stay home and do things here. So we're just going to have dinner with me, my husband, and my parents at home, and just try to we're going to Zoom actually also with some relatives that I haven't seen in many, many years that live out of state. And when I was a child, we would go to visit them for Thanksgiving, but we haven't done so in a really long time after my grandparents passed away. And so we're going to have a big family Zoom call that day. And so that's a way to reconnect with some relatives that I haven't seen or talked to in a long time. So I am really looking forward to rekindling that kind of old childhood memory of going to Idaho for Thanksgiving, but in a new way over Zoom since we have to adapt to COVID. So that's one way.
Well, Linda, how about for you?
So this time of year is, it's hard not only because of the holidays for me, but a lot of the kind of milestones that happened with my dad and his illness happened around this time. So he was, diagnosed in early November. He had surgery the day before Thanksgiving. He passed 5 days before Christmas. So, and his birthday was in the beginning of October. So it's kind of the fall um, and winter are difficult because of that. So that kind of, it almost, takes a little bit bigger of a place in my mind than the holidays, because I didn't live near my dad. We lived, on opposite sides of the country. And so a lot of times, especially for Thanksgiving, like we were not together for the holidays. And um, so that's a little bit different. This year will be, it'll be 5 years since he passed. So that kind of gives it a little bit of a different feel. But honestly, because of COVID this year, like that has really just, I don't know, put me in a little bit of a different headspace about all of it. And so kind of just knowing that I can't like travel, like Emily was saying, to see the rest of my family that remains in Connecticut, and be with them. It's definitely difficult. So I'm just trying to kind of figure out, what we're gonna do. We can't really even have friends over, to our house here in Los Angeles. So yeah, just trying to kind of think about what's going to make the most sense for our family. I know for Thanksgiving, we have a friend who usually hosts a big dinner that we would go to, and she's cooking all the food this year, but doing kind of like a drive-through almost, where we'll go and like pick up food from her, chat with her at her house, socially distanced for a couple of minutes, and then bring the food back and eat it at our house. So it'll be nice to see her for a few minutes and have that little bit of connection. So for Thanksgiving, that will be really nice. And then for Christmas, I honestly haven't thought that far ahead, really. As you mentioned, I have my son, and so I'm trying to think about, what's going to make it special for him this year, what we're going to do. I think I've seen a lot of friends posting pictures of decorating early, and we don't tend to do that, but I think this year we might wind up decorating early, like maybe over the weekend after Thanksgiving, like try to get the tree up and all of that, kind of just like kick things off a little bit earlier than normal. So.
Yeah, that seems to be the trend in my neighborhood. Everybody has lights up already. I've seen Christmas trees. I had a class with actually a student in New Zealand. She put her Christmas tree up at the end of October. I think everybody's just like, I'm just going to celebrate in the way that makes me feel great. I don't care if it's October 15th. Christmas is starting now. Mm-hmm. So a few others who have joined us today are writing in the chat room that they too are thinking about this could be the last holiday with parents. And so as we go through today's panel discussion, I'd love for us to also think about how can we make it more memorable if we really think, oh my gosh, I think this might be the last holiday. And I'm going to be intentional about this because sometimes I run out of patience. So for instance, right now I'm a little impatient with my parents because they went out for lunch yesterday. Now that just seems like the goofiest thing to do. And they don't tell me before they go, they only tell me afterwards. But we're in Illinois and there really is a recommendation that you stay at home except for something essential. I don't think going to Pennyville, one of our local restaurants, for lunch is essential business. So I'm trying to figure out how to tell them they have to stay in so that we can actually celebrate Thanksgiving within our bubble. So the bubble is myself, my niece, and my parents. And so I get a little impatient, which actually steals then the opportunity for me to think about, okay, if this really is the last time together with them, how am I going to make it special? So this is actually helping me be more intentional and let go of the impatience, let go of the impatience. So Melinda, you actually had a really interesting insight about the days that are significant to us because of caregiving, like diagnosis day. So Emily, it's really the significant injury day. And when those days come through the holiday season, our focus is really on remembering these really difficult days, which makes it very difficult for us to feel like we should be celebrating. So I'm wondering how you guys manage when there's a day that comes that you know this day changed my life, and what rituals or healing practices you might put in place around those kinds of days. And I'll leave it up to you guys who would like to start.
I'll go ahead and start. I'll say actually again this year was a little bit different for me. So um, my dad got diagnosed on or I think he probably got diagnosed the day before, but he told me about the diagnosis on November 13th. And I'm usually not good with dates or but everything I think related to my dad's illness is just kind of etched into my memory, and I can usually feel it like building up prior to those days of like, okay, I'm kind of anticipating, I'm looking at the calendar, like I remember. And this year I was really busy and it kind of like, snuck up on me a little bit. And I started off the day kind of feeling like, oh, this isn't hitting me, that hard this year. Like maybe it's been, a few years now, maybe things are different. And then I literally probably spent an hour or two crying in the afternoon. And it was like, it just like hit me really hard and very unexpectedly. And so um, I don't necessarily have like rituals around that or anything, but I do really remember just kind of trying to be as kind to myself as I could. Cause at first I was like, oh my gosh, where is this coming from? Like I have work to do. I don't have time for this. But then I was like, you know what, this is how it has to come out. This is how I'm dealing with this right now. I cannot on top of this be hard on myself for how I'm feeling. So for me, it was really just trying to be accepting of, how it was affecting me, just giving myself that time and space. I took that time off basically. Like I just tried to feel what I was feeling and let it kind of move through me instead of like trying to either stifle it or ignore it or something like that. So yeah, like I said, I don't have rituals around it necessarily, but being more compassionate and kind to myself is definitely helpful in the moment.
Hi, my name is Michael. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Um, I don't, my days probably go for months. Um, my grandmother, who I guess the matriarch, passed about 5 years ago, and everything was basically surrounded with her. When individuals would come from out of town, we always met at her house. Thanksgiving was at her house, Christmas at her house, 4th of July, her birthday. If somebody else's birthday was out, she was the kind of main staple. And the big holiday was um, New Year's, and she ended up passing about 5 years ago. Uh, Still kind of hard. Um, my mother ended up moving along with my sister. Uh, uh, I'm divorced, so it's almost like from April to the from April to um, the beginning of the year, it's always something that reminds me of my grandmother, or how can I get over this particular feeling that I have. So I don't have any rituals. I would love to try to figure out something to kind of bring those days, you know.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that these are opportunities for you to remember and love her. So I wouldn't say that you want to just disregard them or try to work through them really quickly. I would say welcome them as an opportunity to stay connected to her. Your love for her is deep. That love doesn't change. And this is perhaps an opportunity for you to sit in gratitude for what she gave your family. And maybe the ritual is around the memory and the gratitude. So in a particular moment when you start to think, wow, I really miss her, you can think, what is it that I miss about her right now? And then in that answer, create a gratitude. I miss her because she just was so kind and generous. And you can say, thank you so much for your kindness and your generosity. You changed my life. And I would also say, if there's something like that gratitude that is about how she changed your life, it could be the inspiration for how you want to give to another. So yesterday, Kathy talked about a ritual around taking care of ourselves, helping another, and then what was the third one, Kathy? I can't remember. Oh, you have to unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry,
That's
doing
okay.
something to remember the person you lost.
Yes, so that actually could be the ritual, because that's really where you are in that moment. So it's doing something for yourself, which is receiving her love. That's what the memory is. And then thinking about that memory that honors her, and then thinking about how you want to use that memory maybe in that next moment, which could be wherever you are, to give a smile to someone or to send an email to someone to thank them for their work in the world. I think we often feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to stop these emotions, but really the emotions are what connect us, right? In life and then after life. And you can use those emotions to stay connected to her, because she's obviously still such an important part of your life, and you want to stay connected to how important she is. Okay, so I'm going to leave it to the panelists to add anything. What would you guys add?
I think for me, what comes to mind, similar to what you said, Denise, in terms of thinking about the way that you receive those memories, as, you know, if you want to think of them as signs or reminders or communications from her of her love back to you. And then I'm not sure if you're able to join us on Wednesday, but I talked about altars in that workshop. And one idea could be to create an altar at home honoring your grandmother with a photo of her and candles and a special space that memorializes her and her memory. That's one thing that we've done. And I put photos of my grandparents who have all passed away on this kind of holiday seasonal altar that I have up right now. And for my husband, his grandma actually passed away a few weeks after we came home from the hospital. And so he didn't get a chance to see her since his injury. And she was struggling with cancer, and they were both really worried about each other. And she died really close to Christmas. And so that was really hard for him, and still is really hard for him. And so he didn't feel ready to have her photo or the like a memorial photo on the altar, because he thought that it might make him feel too sad to see it every day. And so instead we put a bottle of her favorite wine on the altar in place of a photo, as something to, like, an offering to her and just a symbol of her, and including her there without including a photo, because that for him, it's been 3 years and he still feels like very emotionally impacted by that. So I think that that could be a nice way, thinking about, you know, her favorite chocolate or her favorite wine or her favorite, you know, thing to do. If, you know, knitting, you could put knitting needles or anything like that that symbolizes what she loved to do or what you love to do together. Could be a great way to honor her this holiday season. And if you did have other family that lives far away, they could send a picture or send a memory or something like that that could be added to that altar to make it a family experience, or it could be something just special between you and her.
Thank you.
So I want to mention that Eileen is sharing an idea in the chat room, and she writes, in the Jewish tradition, we light a candle on the anniversary of a person's death. My sister died and her funeral was on on Eileen's 19th birthday. I usually remember to light a candle, but it also helps to light a candle on her birthday to remember and celebrate the day she came to this earth. I love that because that could be a tradition and a ritual that you use around significant days too, to take that moment to really bring in the memory and bring in the experience of having that person in your life. Okay, we've got another question actually in the chat room that I'm going to go to, and that is from Caroline, and she's writing that she'd love some ideas to help support students virtually, especially adolescents, around grief, preparing for the holidays. So interestingly enough, we have an educator with us. And Melinda has a young son. So Kathy, I wonder if you have any thoughts about how you're doing it within your school system, if anything, around grief for young adults.
We don't do anything specifically, but I have heard of a couple of techniques recently that people have used, particularly with adolescents who might not want to talk a lot about the loss. You know, you could encourage art projects or collages in the memory of the person they're missing, or something that reminds them of that person, or even writing them a letter, writing to that person, just telling them how much they miss them. And one of my big tricks, and I don't know how this works with adolescents, one of my big tricks is a lot of people don't like to commit to writing things down. Like there's some sort of, I don't know, something about writing that makes people go, oh, well, you know, it has to be perfect if I write it. It has to, you know, look a certain way. So one thing I like to think about too is having people tell their stories in voice to text software. And that way, you know, they can get, or like the notes function on your iPad or something, and that way they can get their stories out without having to do the writing. They can always edit them later if they want, but they could even dictate a letter to the person they're missing, just to talk about what they miss and how much they miss them and feel like they're in communication with that person.
Melinda, I wonder if you would be able to add anything based on your experience with your son.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's tough because, like I said, we didn't live, you know, close to my dad. So my son didn't spend a ton of time with him. And he was 5 when my dad passed. But for us, I think it's just having that freedom to talk about him, you know, whenever he comes up, you know, like my son will mention things sometimes, like he has a crazy memory, so he'll say something about, you know, oh, remember when we went to this place? And you know, when he was like 4, it's like, oh, you remember that? Okay. um you know, and just kind of telling stories, or you know, my dad was kind of like a very silly guy, and my son and I like to be really silly together, so that always kind of makes me feel like, you know, it's kind of connecting us to him. We seem to share like a similar sense of humor, and so that's a lot of times where it will come out, and you know, for me personally, I'll feel very connected to him. And actually I feel like for our kind of Christmas holiday traditions, even though we weren't always with my dad on Christmas, when I was growing up, it was a lot about, we would usually spend Christmas Eve with my dad's parents and my grandparents on my dad's side. And it was, you know, it was the same meal, you know, it was my grandmother making Christmas cookies and things like that. And we've pulled some of that over. And so that, that definitely kind of brings up a lot of memories about my dad. My grandmother had this like uh, cast iron bean cutter for green beans. It's like this thing that you literally put the beans in, like crank it, and it has these blades, and it like makes French cut green beans. And that was me and my sister's job. It was to, you know, crank the beans when we were kids. And my dad actually wound up finding a similar one on, you know, eBay or something one year and sent it to me. And so now, and my son likes to, you know, do the beans. And so like, it's again, like, so then we'll do that and we'll talk about my grandparents, we'll talk about my dad, and share those kinds of stories. So that's, I think, you know, how we kind of, we manage that process, you know, for me and for him during that time. So.
Emily, anything you want to add?
I love that example, Melinda. Thank you. I think I would just add, especially with adolescents, is being honest with them and transparent in your communication of like, this is not normal. These are not normal times, and these are really, really hard times. I'm a graduate student, so I'm in school too, and I think there's a big difference between when professors just sort of carry on with class and go on as if there's nothing kind of happening abnormal in the world, versus our professors who start class saying, you know, this is really hard. There's a lot going on. It's hard to be a student right now. It's hard to be a family member right now, and recognizing that a lot of students are also caregivers in one way or another, and I think just being honest, and so they don't feel like, you know, no one's kind of telling them the truth or communicating with them, and creating a space to allow them to start to open up and share. And it might take some time, but just working towards building that trust. And I think just saying, you know, being really open that, you know, I'm struggling too. This is a really unusual, you know, pandemic and things that we're all going through as a collective right now. And then also individually, what, you know, you all each might be going through in your own families, and just recognizing how hard it is right now, I think can go a long way.
Something that I think is kind of interesting is this conversation around food. So Kathy and I started a conversation around food yesterday, and I think food is a blessing and a curse in many ways around the traditions during our holidays. I think the discussion around recipe and food can be an easy entree into a discussion around who used to do what, or what we remember about mom's chocolate chip cookies. And so that can be a natural way to talk about food. But then sometimes, Kathy and I were talking about this yesterday, there are people in the family that don't like certain types of foods that are served over the holidays. And if you're preparing them, you're overwhelmed. And I think also we're overwhelmed sometimes by dietary restrictions. So in my family, sometimes it was difficult to figure out how do we accommodate those who are gluten-free and vegan, and those who want to eat, you know, everything. So I guess let's talk a little bit about food. So Kathy, tell us where you are right now around the concern that you have about food that you're going to serve around Thanksgiving, and who's going to eat it and who isn't.
Right, that pretty much our Thanksgiving will be the three of us, myself, my husband, and my son. And two of us like turkey and one of us does not. So first of all, we don't know what we're doing for Thanksgiving, but exactly. But you know, one idea was to buy a packaged meal, but then we have the non-turkey lover amongst us. So, you know, we it's an interesting balance about that in terms of how to handle that. And you know, maybe we're getting takeout the night before and then takeout day of. But you know, just thinking about our traditions, I have to just share that my mother always said, remember, you don't have to celebrate the holiday on the holiday, which, you know, I think we'll get to at some point, you know, maybe in the post-holiday discussion. But, you know, so certainly if we end up having takeout the night before, maybe that's going to be our holiday. And then everyone can get what they want, even if it's not turkey, for the turkey hater in the family.
Yeah, I love that reminder that the holiday takes place on the day that we designate it's the holiday, which gives us a little flexibility. Emily, how about for you in your family around food?
I think so. We used to, when I was a kid, we had Thanksgiving for many years in a row with family friends, a close family friends, and they have a really big family. So it was like a big, and I'm an only child, so we would have them over, or we would go to one of their houses, and their kind of the matriarch of their family was close friends with my mom since they were kids, and so she was kind of like an aunt to me. And so she would make, and a couple of her family members, they would make this really great sweet potato dish with like, I forgot what kind of nuts, some kind of nuts on top, and like caramelized pecans, I think. And so that was really, really great. And we haven't had Thanksgiving with them for a long time because they moved away to different places. But my mom makes that dish now and has made that every year for a long time. So that's a dish that I always look forward to. And then I think also bread pudding. My dad used to always make bread pudding for Christmas, Christmas morning. And several years ago, I started kind of taking that over. So now I make the bread pudding on Christmas morning, but my dad is gluten-free. So I figured out one year and I got different gluten-free bread and made it, and it still was really good. And so we found ways to, I think I actually did one that was gluten-free and one that was not gluten-free, but it turned out well. So trying to find ways to continue the traditions and also make some adaptations to them as well to be inclusive. So
After your presentation on Wednesday, Emily, we had a conversation about food and your idea around the altars that we can create. Wonder if you can share us some ideas about what we can do if we're creating an altar on the day of our holiday and how we can integrate food in the altar.
yeah, absolutely. So one thing I mentioned already was the bottle of wine. You could also do something like a box of chocolates or something that's contained kind of in a package. But you could also take a little bit of a favorite home cooked meal and put it on a small little special plate. And you can add that to your altar as an offering for your loved one, as a symbolic way of sharing a meal with them. And we just recently in the first week of November, all over the world in different cultures and religions and traditions. There's Day of the Dead and honoring the dead, and many people in different traditions around the world do add food to those altars, especially during that kind of first week of November. And so I think that can be a really important practice. I have to be careful because I have 2 dogs. So I will say you want to be mindful of your pets, because if you put a big plate of Thanksgiving dinner on an altar that's reachable, your dog might try to get to it. So it could just be a little bit. It doesn't have to be a whole plate, but it's a really great way to either share a favorite meal with someone, or to just really honor their memory of a dish that they used to cook. Or if you are someone who likes to set a place at a table for a relative who has passed on, you could put a small little plate there for them with a little bit of food as well. And so considering that as an offering and a prayer of gratitude and love.
So this conversation around food is actually making me think also about how we can honor someone with a toast. And I wonder if anybody has special toasts or thinking about doing a special toast this holiday season. This is the first time I'm thinking of it, so it's okay if it's the first time you guys are thinking about it. I wonder if we do a special toast, if there's a way to almost make it into a prayer. So a combination prayer and toast, or, I think oftentimes around Thanksgiving, many people will do the whole, what are you grateful for? And I wonder if there's a toast of gratitude that speaks and honors those who aren't with us. What are you guys thinking about toasts? If anybody's thinking about it.
I don't have thoughts on a toast specifically, but your mentioning of that made me think of there's a restaurant near my house here in LA where my dad and I would go when he would come to visit. And so usually on his birthday and the anniversary of his passing, I'll go and get they make a drink that's basically like a frappuccino from Starbucks. So it's like a bit like a milkshake. And so he and I used to get them. We really liked them. And my dad was also, he pretty generous. Like he was the guy who would like anonymously pay for another family's meal, when he was out or something like that. So on those occasions when I go and do that, I try to tip extra in an amount that makes sense. Like this year he would have been, he would have turned 67. So, it's like I tip like $6.70 or something like that on like a drink that's like, $4 or something. So just to try to, again, like kind of have that connection to him and his generosity in that time. Again, it has nothing to do with a toast, but I was just thinking of drinks and, and kind of connecting to him in that way.
I love that. What a great idea. I love that. And I love it as it relates again to this idea that it's our memory we're honoring while we're passing it on, meaning that the goodwill is shared with others then as well. So it's this communal, global experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. How do you guys feel about talking about gift giving this holiday season? Okay. And I think it's the hardest part about the holiday season sometimes, this idea that we're giving gifts and spending money and coming up with a budget. So I'm wondering, how do you guys approach gift giving and what's changed for you this holiday season?
I think this year is a little different. What some of my family members suggested, because we can't be all together at the same time because of travel, we're going to do a grab bag online grab bag, in which you pull all the names in. It selectively send you the person that you're going to be the person for the grab bag, and then we're going to send the gifts via Amazon, which is free shipping, and hopefully they'll get it that particular day. So therefore, you don't have to take no gifts anywhere. So, due to COVID, what have you.
That's an awesome idea. That is an awesome idea.
And then
I love how easy that is.
Of course, you can have the gifts wrapped as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is a great idea. Okay, so everybody's going to be doing that. And what I love about that is that a tradition that you think, oh gosh, we can't do the grab bag or the Secret Santa this year.
Yeah.
It actually is an easier way to do it.
Yeah. And of course, free shipping and handling with Amazon if you have Amazon Prime.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And I love too that you can actually have a wish list that you create off of Amazon. And so someone can go in and just see what you want and buy it for you. There's no guessing. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to try to figure it out, but that person is still surprised by what they receive and who it is that sent them. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
I'm thinking too that you could do a cool gift opening thing over Zoom also, where you can, everyone could open them and see what, in real time, what people are getting, and that could make it really fun too.
How about anybody else around?
Gift giving, I'm all set.
Say that again?
That takes care of my gift giving questions. I'm all set. Now I know what I'm going to do. Thank you for that idea.
Melinda, how about for you with gift giving?
I think, like families with young children, I think it's mostly about, the kids, which I love. It's such a fun part of the holidays, and honestly, it's one of the things that got us through that very first Christmas, which happened 5 days after my dad passed. We were all together. I was with my sister and her 2 kids, and obviously it wasn't a normal traditional holiday, but we still had, the boys were all opening their presents on Christmas morning, and they were excited about the things that they received. And so, yeah, that's it remains a bright spot, obviously. And because my family's so far away, I'm used to the shipping of the gifts. We do a lot of gift cards because that's kind of the easy way to go. And I will say, in my family, my sister is an amazing gift giver. She's very, very thoughtful, like picks out amazing things. I don't know how she does it. And I feel like I don't have that skill. So, so I do the best I can, but she sometimes somehow has a knack for finding really thoughtful and meaningful gifts for all of us. So that's something that I appreciate and look forward to every year.
Yeah, that is a gift to be able to pick out the best gifts. That is a gift.
Yes.
So Mary Jo has shared something in the chat room that really is quite lovely. And she says that her sister had her mom's wedding dress. And so she cut portions and made small pillows for everyone. And I think that's so beautiful. What a great idea. I think about too with gifts, this is an opportunity for us to express ourselves maybe in a way that we don't typically feel comfortable doing. So my family were pretty stoic, not very demonstrative. We certainly don't have a language around love that we speak. It's, basically, hey, how are you doing? That's how we express love to each other. So what I've done in the past is I bought almost like coffee table books around a theme. So for my sisters, I bought a sister's book that came out several years ago. And then I wrote in as an inscription what it is that they have given me as a sister. So I gave one to each of my two sisters and then to each of my two sisters-in-law because they're sisters too. And that made me feel good that I was expressing myself. So we can think about how we can use gifts then to also create something that becomes a treasure for the recipient and then an opportunity for us to express ourselves as the gift giver as well. And I also think there's a way for us too to give the gift of a memory of someone who's gone. Emily, did you want to add anything?
I love the idea of doing something with photos, like for a memory of, if someone has passed on, you could, there's so many things online that you can create with photos. I mean, from mugs to blankets to, everything, pretty much coasters. And you could use photos of a loved one and to create something for all of your family members that they can have at home too, to memorialize that person. And then just another idea are stockings. And so we're pretty low key now in terms of me, my husband, and my parents of Christmas, and we don't really do other gifts anymore, but we do stockings still, just kind of, for fun and things that are useful or, little kind of trinkets and things. So I'll do it for my parents and, like for my mom, I'll kind of work with my dad to put together a stocking for my mom and then work with my mom to do one for my dad and then work with my parents to make one for my husband and they make one for me. So it's kind of fun and just, it's low key and low stress, but it's a way that we still can kind of celebrate that holiday and share something with each other without a lot of stress or pressure of, and we don't have any small kids in our family and things. So it's a little bit different now that like I'm older and things. So yeah, we do stockings. That's something that, and then for me, actually, what I did is I ordered crystals. So if you saw my workshop Wednesday, I really like crystals and altars. So I ordered crystals for my parents and for my husband and for my close friends. And so I'm going to give everyone a crystal for their altar.
Yeah, I wondered about altars as a gift to give. Have you done that, Emily? Created an altar and
Yeah,
given it? And
I
what kind of
have.
altar have you created as a gift?
So I have these little great glass jars, and it actually Costco, they had these little desserts and they came in these jars. So then after we ate them, I saved these little glass jars and I filled them about this is salt from a grief ritual, but I filled them with crystals for a friend, some sand, and then a little layer of little crystal chips and then an air plant on top. And I gave that to friends. And so they could use it at home or on their desk at work. And it was just a really simple way. So you could get a bag of sand at the craft store, a bag of small crystal chips, and a set of little air plants, which are plants that don't have roots and they don't need soil. And you just need to give them a little spray of water once a week. So they're super low maintenance. And so that was a gift that I did for friends one year. That was pretty easy to put together. And really meaningful, and they liked it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. I was saying before we started today's presentation that I had an insight about the altars that are part of our environment that we wouldn't have necessarily called altars, but now I see that there's altars all around us. And I was telling Emily that my mom actually has altars, but they're house plants, but the way that she has them assembled and the way that they are a part of her life and the joy that they give her, they are an altar to her. So now I have an idea about a gift I can give her that adds to that altar of her plants. And I love the idea of are they air plants? Is that
Yeah, and if you just look online, air plants, you'll be able to find it. There's different shapes and types and different colors. But yeah, there's a lot of different ones and they're very easy and low maintenance for people. So
right? So oftentimes what we will do so it's my niece and I typically who are there with my parents. My mom will say, water the plants, check the plants. How do the plants look? She's very concerned about the plants. And so this idea that there would be a plant that she could herself, if we could find the right spray bottle that will work with her arthritis, that maybe she just does a quick little spritz, that she would like to do that. And then she can really feel like she's taking care of the plants.
yeah, and if she's not able to spritz because of arthritis, she also could just drop it into a cup of water for a few minutes and then take it out. So you can just soak it in water too, and then just leave it on a paper towel if that would be a problem to use a sprayer.
Okay, that's a great idea too. I love that. I love that. I just love the perspective on seeing the objects in our life in a different way and what they give to us in a way that's a ritual because they really are altars. I just find that fascinating. Okay, so we've got just about 3 minutes left. So I guess my last question for you guys is, what are you thinking about adding into your holiday rituals this year that might be just for this year, but give you a sense of comfort? Who?
Well, hi. I'm sorry for being late, but
Oh, that's okay.
I will chime in.
Oh, hi, Regina.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Thanks. It's great that you do this. Thank you. What I'm going to do when I'm with my family, because that means my sister, brother, sister-in-law, and their kids. That's the closest family. Um, I'm going to ask them to say something about Ian, or at least
Yes.
speak his name.
Yes.
Yeah, the loss is so new. It's the first one without him, and I just I'm not going to ask them to do this every year. It's just that idea that speaking his name brings his spirit in.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm going to do differently, and it'll just be this year. So
I love that. And I love the expression of let's bring his spirit in. I'd love for you guys to share a memory of him. And then just letting everyone talk. I love that. And it's such a comfort to you when
yeah,
the conversation happens and the memories are shared.
yeah, they're going to be surprised because I was going through a lot of Ian's things and found uh, stacks of 8x10s. And so, like it or not, they're also getting a picture. I'll just tell them, this is for you so you can remember him. And when you've had enough of this, you can put it in a drawer or a trash can. But this is for now. This is so
Yeah.
you can remember Uncle Ian.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love this idea that we're creating what feels right for us right now.
Yeah.
And then just deciding later what we'll do later.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly, I feel strongly that the people in my life need to, despite the fact that we're all dealing with fears of coronavirus, Yeah, this is an added layer in our lives, and so I don't know what I guess I want to say. Cut me a little slack this time, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I love the idea that you're giving the photos without any expectations. It's the act of giving that's important for you. So you know they will have them when they're ready to look at them or do whatever they want to do with them. I think that's really lovely.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And
Thank
Regina,
you.
maybe if you're able to record it so that when they share that you're able to record those memories if they're open to it, could be a great way to preserve that for the future.
What a good idea. That's so easily done these days. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll just turn on the phone. And I don't think anyone would say no. Thank you for that.
Okay, and I think we're going to close for today. Thank you guys all for being here with us this week. It was so helpful to talk out our holidays, and especially as they relate to our grieving process. And I think if there was a theme, it was be kind to yourself, be gracious, choose what works right now, give yourself that permission. Thanks so much to all of you. Thanks to our panelists who joined me today, Kathy, Emily, and Melinda, and thanks you guys for also presenting this week. So we look forward to seeing you again in January. We're going to do a follow-up to this event in January, beginning January 12th for 4 days. And we're going to talk about how we heal after the holidays. So you can RSVP for that. When you receive the follow-up email that goes out this afternoon with your evaluation, there's also a link to RSVP for our January event, some information about other types of events that you can join us for. So thanks everybody so much for being here. We do wish you a healing holiday. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.